Gosh. All right, welcome back to the show, Ende. How you feeling today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back. I thought I wouldn't be invited to be back after the first incident on the first episode, but good to be back.
Oh yes, yeah. We have to mention that all the clickety clickety. I
Yeah,
think you were you were hacking me right as we were talking. I think you
I,
said.
I definitely wasn't. I wasn't not hacking you, but no, that was great to be back. Look, I think I had a good time and happy to follow up on what we talked about last couple of weeks ago now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, it's every 2 weeks for the people who are new to the show. We'll try and get some more content out weekly, but for now, with so much happening, we're trying to condense the show down to try and keep it on an hour. Because if we actually, that's a good segue into talking about some of the feedback and the engagement from the last episode. So in total, we had about 1,300 total listens, which was pretty amazing for the first podcast across all platforms. I thought that was really good.
That's more people than I know.
Yeah, well, that's right. And me too. You and I both combined. And then, when we look at the stats, I think we saw around 80% of those listeners listened to more than 90% of the show, which is really, really good. So thank you to everybody out there who listened to the show and gave us
God,
some really positive feedback. It was
God
great.
bless their souls.
By the end of it, they weren't,
They will be
listening
bitty
to
boppity as well.
yeah, beep up, fingers down the blackboard kind of stuff. No, it's all good. The other thing I want to mention, we've got a sponsor for the show
Cool.
this time around. Yeah, yeah. We will Digital Discovery Group is combining with community libraries, and we're giving away libraries. So they're sponsoring the show. So
Wonderful.
communitylibraries.com.au. Now these are the libraries that you put out in the community. You can put them on the corner of your or out the front of your house, and yeah, you just basically leave a book. You take a book and leave a book, and it's a great way. We're looking at also building an app, so you'll be able to see where they are and the local ones are, and it's a really good initiative for the community. It's combining the online and the offline together because we'll put it all up on and have on Google Maps the locations across Australia.
So,
So.
yeah, for anyone
hmm.
that wants to get involved, like, how does it work?
Well, at this point, we're going to probably look at setting up some form of just donations or whatever, and then we'll build them. And then as we build them, we'll send them out to the different schools or different local
Communities.
communities. Yeah, yeah. So the first one will be at St. Francis of Assisi. So we'll put that up out and some links. Yeah, adding Western Sydney for our listeners to have a look, and if they're interested to get involved. So yeah, so let's jump straight into the show. So we've got two parts to the show today. We're going to be talking about the feedback we got around the Facebook clone hack. It was an interesting one because it happened to me. It's happened, I think, to you. It's happened to quite a few people I know, and we had a lot of people, even businesses, just asking what happens and what do you do. If your profile is somehow cloned, you can report it to Facebook and so on. So maybe, if we can dive into that straight up, and we'll get into that. Yeah, mate, over to you on
Ab-
that one. Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, I've been doing a little bit digging and on these recent reports and incidents. So, look, the short of it is most of the types of, I guess, hacks or attacks that bad guys are perpetrating is social engineering. So, um, social engineering covers a lot of things, but it's things like impersonating people,
Hmm.
pretending to be someone or someone from authority. There's all different ways that people can either use those techniques to get extra information out of you, or use it for the actual hack or the attack, which is, I guess,
Hmm.
ultimately something that you have that they want, either money or access to your accounts, things like that, or that sort
Yeah.
of nature. So,
Yeah. So when you say it's sort of, so it's part, so this is sort of part of the arsenal someone would use. It's sort of part of a much bigger picture, right? Of this social engineering concept. It's been around for the days of hacking.
mhm,
Um, so
it's yeah,
what happens? I mean, it happened to a friend of mine. So she reached out. She said, "Oh, someone's don't accept a friend request if you've received, from this particular account." But at that point, it was kind of too late. I thought something had happened to her old account. She was locked out, and then she was just trying to get back into, or she's recreating another account basically. So I accepted it, and like, okay, but I didn't actually receive any communication from the new account at that point. I just accepted it, so she got onto it fairly quickly.
Yep.
But just tell us, like, what basically what happens? How do you report it? Like, if is there something you report? I mean, what's the first steps you do? You obviously notify your friends, let them know.
Look, Facebook have a bunch of built-in reporting tools.
That's all right. We can include those links in the podcast page as well.
Yeah, so actually, so first thing you do, if you've identified an impersonated page, either from yourself or somebody you know, you can actually go to the profile itself, and up in the little cogs or the settings, there's an option to report. And
Hmm.
under those reporting options, there's like different categories. So, such as if it's an impersonation or if it's something you don't agree with, if it's against its T's and C's, you can actually report a page for it. So, if you know
Hmm.
a Facebook page or a group are doing scammy activities or illegal activities or anything that breaches Facebook's terms and conditions, you can report them and it gets reviewed by Facebook and hopefully swiftly taken down if they're doing something wrong. So those are the ways you can do it. Otherwise, as I mentioned last week, look, if you've got a friend request from a friend that you're already connected to and it's very odd or the circumstances are odd or something's just not right, best thing I'd advise if you're in contact with them, reach out outside of Facebook.
Hmm.
Um, just in
Yep.
case their main account is compromised already. You
Yes.
don't want to
Yep.
be reaching out to the bad guy again.
Hmm.
If you've got that avenue, take that avenue, reach out, give him SMS, give him a call, actually
Mm.
talk to someone nowadays, with social media and all. Just say,
Yes.
hey, mate, got another request from you. Are you creating new accounts? Are you trying to hide from a jilted lover, or
Mm.
is it actually you? So that's
Yep.
probably a good approach, is to just get the human connection, get in touch with the person, and see if it's legit or not.
Yep.
Um, and then obviously the most obvious thing you can do is just ignore it. If it looks too scammy, just ignore it until you can confirm otherwise. When we talk about the attacks, right? The social engineering itself. There's different ways to do it through email, social media, and mostly it's usually like communication around urgency or fear or FOMO, like missing
Hmm.
out. Click here
Yep.
to get your special on washing machines. $199 instead of 1,000. So obviously everybody's out for a bargain. Especially what rings true, and it's happened to me. I'm happen to be looking for a certain product,
Hmm.
and there's a scam that comes on and it says, yes, a false advertising, scam advertising saying $99 for whatever item you're after. And then I almost click on it. I was like, wow, I'm actually looking for one of those. Like, I'm going to click on it because, great timing, great advertising, Google. But nine times out of 10, too good to be true. It probably is not true. So
Hmm.
um, it's hard to say. Like, they're getting pretty good. And this is probably where my segue into the oh, something happened on the screen. Yeah, my segue. Yeah, exactly. There's the links right there. Reporting Facebook. Go to the profile.
Yep. And there's a
Click under the
little
cover.
ellipsis at the bottom there. Yep. And then you can click on that.
Oh,
Report the profile.
that's
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Yeah. So what I was just getting at, like, so obviously you have. I think there's quite a few people who have experienced some sort of phishing attack or campaign, and most of it is generalized. It'll be like you've won £1 million, or the
Mm.
Prince of Saudi wants to donate something, and you're the lucky
So
recipient.
it's surprising how many people what, you've
And
won $1 trillion and you want to give me some? You just need all my personal details? Sure.
exactly, and you were like, I was just at that dude's house last week. Why didn't he tell me something? If you were the prince, some Saudi prince, but and those are like very generalized, right? So
Yeah.
your spider sense kicks in and goes, that's not true. Just delete it, ignore it, report. Use your communication platforms reporting button as well, because it helps them get better at filtering that out. So if you have the phishing report button or a scam report button, do click it. It does help the platforms get better. Gmail,
Mm.
God save Outlook, because Microsoft's spam filter is just terrible. But
Yeah.
anyway, whatever helps.
Yeah.
So
Actually, that extends through to personalization and ads as well online. When marketers are trying to just spam a whole bunch of cookies, and push out ads to everybody, I often find myself actually clicking that, not relevant to Google, and it's quite quite interesting because it actually comes back and they start serving me better ads. So in the end, it does the whole ecosystem is better off.
It is a
Um,
bit creepy though sometimes.
it is totally creepy. Just I just want to quickly touch on that point, and then we can move on to the next topic, I think. But the the whole point about what you mentioned, you know, taking over someone's profile and then running that whole, oh, you send me money, or there's some sort of competition or a scam. It happens. It's happened to businesses as well, and it's not just individuals. And this is why I think it's important for us to talk about, because if you look at it there, if you look at some of the examples, I think you can Google them, and we might at the end of the show we might put some links to some examples of companies where their Facebook page has been taken over. They've run that hackers have run a fake competition where you
Mhm.
can win a whole bunch of money, and then you've got to, as part of the entry of that competition, you've then got to give them all of your personal details, and it looks legitimate.
Mhm.
And then they capture all those details, and then all of a sudden they've got your date of birth, they've got your, you know, all this information about you, and it's quite effective from a hacking point of view. And it legitimately looks like you know, that company's website, or Facebook, branded Facebook page. So it's sometimes it's hard to identify, but usually if it seems too good to be true, it is. And I would always tell people from a privacy point of view is there are tools and things you can actually download to monitor whether or not something is legitimate. You got to be vigilant around the URLs of competitions, especially. I think good
Oh,
or best practice for companies is to use subdomains within their domain.
I
But then,
have.
have you got some examples? Like,
I have some really good example, and this is where
mm,
I'm going to come back to you in the next episode, right? So everyone knows those SMS services,
yeah,
and you get an SMS from the actual service from NRMA,
yes, yeah.
um, Woolies, or
Even
whoever.
Woolies for deliveries. Yeah, yeah,
Correct,
yep.
and the sender is Woolworths, right?
Hmm.
Or Combank, and this is a really good one. And I'll I'll send a clip out to you to post on our site. It's very interesting. I don't know how to share my screen, but I'm going to show you. So the
Yeah,
sender is Combank, correct? Right?
yes, yeah.
Looks legit.
Combank. Yeah, yep.
SMS, and it looks like one of those legitimate services.
Hmm.
But if we look at the content of the message, and I'll read it to you, Nigel, it says, Combank, your account is being checked for suspected fraudulent funds. Your account will be frozen immediately. Please click the link below to complete the verification. And it's got the little URL, right? But if you look at the URL, and we're talking about domain, typo squatting here, it says
Yeah.
https whack whack www conspank.com.
does anybody does anybody bank at Conspank?
Yeah, so if anyone banks at Conspank, please be aware that your account's been taken over.
Mm.
But anyway, look, if you weren't careful,
And you weren't
you
paying
would
attention.
you would
That's
have
the whole
clicked in,
point. Yeah, yep.
and I bet you if I detonated that URL in a sandbox somewhere, I would have seen the Combank colors and logos, etc. So I mean,
100%.
I knew. So I'm vigilant. Average Joe, maybe not so. You get to
Yeah,
that page,
yeah.
fake login um, portal, and you've now just released your Combank login credentials out to somebody.
Oh,
So
100%. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's yeah. I mean, there's so many things that people have to be aware of. It also happens in ads as well. I don't know if you have seen any of these, but I have. I've seen where people are running Google Ads, and somehow a verified account has, or a verified advertiser has been able to put or inject a form of script into an ad unit, which is then served onto a page, which then infects the page. Um, the other day, I experienced, I think I was on, I can't remember the site I was on, it was a US based news site. And I showed you it actually tried to download a file to my phone. And it was iOS was asking me if it wanted me to download, and it was part of some malformed code that was trying to serve an ad unit to me, a personalized ad unit to me, and it looked like it was the site had actually been hacked. So it's super important where if everybody's going to be vigilant, the businesses take extreme amounts of care and testing and making sure that if they do run competitions on Facebook, that all their URLs look nice and clean, is best practice. And then I don't think there is an international standard of how to run these things. I'm sure Meta provides some form of best use examples. Um, yeah. All right. Well, anything else we want to touch on that one? I think it's if we're seeing it, I think report it. That's the
That's
number
right.
one thing. It's the only way. I don't know how long Meta takes to respond to taking down that particular profile. I'm sure there's checks and balances in place to confirm your profile once that is done. I've never experienced it, but it'd be interesting to create a profile and report it and see what happens when you try and log into it again.
It sounds like a
It sounds like a
that's,
bit of a hack, but I'm pretty sure there would be some form of algorithm that'll go in and have a look at the activity.
there's a
And if
fair
it's
bit of
seeing a whole
automation.
bunch of immediate, requests for friends of a particular person and it's been created within a certain time frame. So don't want to
Yeah,
tell people how to create
that's right.
how to get around their algorithms, but I'm pretty
Structural.
sure. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, and they got an army of people as well. So a lot of the moderation work that goes is actually ends up at people if AI or automation can't pick that sort of stuff up. With AI now being with the advent of AI, maybe they are getting better and less manual people moderations done, but there's still people behind doing that type of work. I just want
Yeah.
to circle back to we're talking about social engineering
Hmm.
a second ago. So we talked about number one, the generalized Prince of Saudis sent you. He needs a bank account to land his money, whatever, right?
Yep.
Generalized. You see it. Spider senses go off. You go, that looks weird.
Yep.
Then you get the stuff we talked about before. We mentioned it earlier with targeted phishing attacks. Spear phishing attacks
Spearfishing. Yeah, that's right.
or whaling where they're going for a large target. So we call it OSINT, right? Open source intelligence. You can find out information about people across the web. You Google somebody's name, they'll probably show up. If you had a public profile, MySpace or whatever, it's been hoovered up on the interwebs. But
Mm-hmm.
here's something you may not realize, right? And this happens on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Have you ever either participated? I'm not accusing you of anything, but have you ever participated or have been tagged in one of those posts that says, "What's your favorite color?"
Yeah.
Whoever starts with a
IQ
P, tag
test.
them. IQ test, or
Yeah.
tag them with a P. Whoever name starts with G, tag them, whatever, right? Sorry, nice write up on zerofox.com. It talks about how the bad guys are cleaning information, and it's the most innocent, benign one. But it's actually there's a post on their site. It's a snapshot. I'll post it to you in a second. It's a snapshot from a Twitter that Arnold posted, and the hashtag is first 7 jobs. Right, and this is on zerofox.com. The screenshot says first 7 jobs. So we know that Arnold has been an ice cream salesman at age 10 by the lake. He was a farmhand, he was a glass factory custodian, he was a hardware salesperson, a baker, tank driver, and a personal trainer. Those is, you know, his first 7 jobs hashtag. That's a lot of information that you could use to try and derive somebody's password. And people are just participating in this. It happens on Facebook. 25 random things about me. I got my first dog 13 years ago. Its name was Dharma. So, and correct me if I'm wrong. A lot of those questions are like, what's your mother's maiden name? What's your pet's
Yes.
name?
Yeah, everything you would need to recover someone's account.
Right. So if you're starting a campaign to, I guess, do an account takeover, and recovery questions are X.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you go to school? I would probably connect you on Facebook and tagging you in those sort of campaigns to try and get that out of you,
100% you would.
and you wouldn't
Yeah,
realize
yeah.
that you've done it. So that's a really
Especially
interesting
if it was a high
article.
net worth individual or somebody who was, like you say, a spearfishing attack of someone who's a CEO. It's not that hard to find CEOs on Facebook, to be honest with you.
Politically exposed people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, this is a good write up. I will link at that article as well, so everyone can have a quick read. But it's very, very interesting, and you may not realize it. So just be conscious about what you're putting out there on the web.
No, people just do it. They just don't think. Sometimes it's easy to do.
I, I have a juicy nugget hot off the press, and it's not
Yep.
naming names, but I'm going to
Okay.
definitely name the organization. So
Mm-hmm.
we all know Woolworths.
Mm-hmm.
I did work with that organization in a few times in and out,
Yep.
doing various
My
things.
wife doesn't shop anywhere else online. She thinks it's the absolute best.
Mate, tell me an Australian that doesn't shop at Woolies.
Oh, come on. She actually wants Aldi to go online. Funny enough, she says, "Look, why isn't Aldi online?
Well, you
What's
should
going
get
on with Aldi? We should do a
digital
whole
discovery.
podcast about Aldi and why they aren't online."
So, Woolworths Group, right? A colleague, and they probably know who I'm talking about. A colleague and a friend that I know through network passed on something on to me, right? And it was an email from a domain called companypolicy.com.au. Had Woolworths writing all over it, very poorly written, but badly written grammar. It's going the lines of, "Hey, we've overcharged you. We feel very sorry. Here's $1,000 of gift cards on the house. Feel free to take you out and wine and dine on us." Everything else looks legit. It says Woolworths, whatever, right? Except the domain name looks weird. Companypolicy.com.au.
Mm-hmm.
Not encouraging anyone to go and see what it is, but it doesn't go anywhere. You need a special URL key to get access to it, to whatever the link it's trying to send you to.
So is it a
It is. I've
oh
done some
shit?
research.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll see how
interesting.
far I went down
Well,
in
you
depth.
can tap into the AU Who Is and see who's registered it, and
Exactly. You have redone it. So,
it's probably
so
someone's fake profile, like a
the
fake
funny
ID or
thing
something.
is
Yeah,
what no, this is the kicker, right? So
yeah.
this person is now forwarded to the hoax team at Woolworths,
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Hey, fellas, FYI,
Yeah,
this is going around."
yeah.
He just got a response going, "Hey, yeah, that's 100% legitimate. Thanks. Any problems? Call Woolies team. Goodbye."
What? So it's legitimate?
Yes.
Oh, you're kidding me.
I've hit the grapevine and I've inquired through my contact sounds like what gives, because it's clearly a hoax.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
but anyway, that's still open in the air, open debate. Could be legitimate. Have no idea, but it's just very very odd.
Yeah. Again, I mean, it points to the fact you've really got to be vigilant about what you're clicking on and the URLs and
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. No, it's interesting. No, that's a good one. All right, cool. Thanks
I
for
mean,
that. We
yeah,
should,
no, I'll just
yeah.
encourage anybody to give us some feedback if they've
If
encountered
they've
a
if
similar sort of
experienced,
thing.
yeah. Well, I mean, they can leave the comments in the comment section on the site or on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, on the website you can actually leave on the Digital Discovery Group / podcast. You can actually leave comments there. So reach out if you've got some topics you'd like us to discuss. Anyway, I
Do you
mean,
have an email address as well? They could email you if they have any topic suggestions or anything
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yep. That's podcasts at digitaldiscovery.group. Um, that's where you can leave and I'll actually leave a link in the show notes at the
Oh,
end.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, that's enough of me talking. What have
No,
you
no.
got for this week?
Well, I mean, we may as well continue on actually there because we had some interesting news this week around privacy, and there actually was a really interesting article from Huffington Post. Now, this comes back to the new platform called Threads from Meta, and we're going to touch on that for for a little bit. It's it's an interesting one. I did you create an account?
No, no,
Yeah.
I'm not on
Okay.
the hype train.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'll take everybody through what my thoughts on Threads and also from a retailer point of view and from a user point of view. So I'm going to put both hats on for this one because I think it's important to go through the relevance of this platform in the current environment.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Um, yeah. So part of the release of Threads was the concerns around Facebook's use of data. It sort of came up again, and it was kicking up dust around the whole. How is Facebook using my data? How is So there were a lot of questions being asked, and I'll put a link to the Huffington Post article, and it really outlines some interesting information around how they launched it, and how it was the take up was a record. So basically, it beat Chat GPT. I don't know if you know this. It beat Chat GPT in terms of user take up. And then I think it was all based on how easy it was to create a new Threads account. Because once you're in Instagram, you could actually just one click and then create. It would bring all your followers across. It would bring all your data across. And obviously, we know that Threads, for me, it's interesting because it's a take on threading data,
Well,
and it's
sorry.
sort of like threading data from Facebook to Instagram now to a conversation that you're having, out on the interwebs, in the
Yeah,
and
I
how
mean,
it threads all of that together.
can you? Because I haven't obviously got my head in the sand. Can you just give me a quick rundown what the hell Threads is? What is it?
Yeah, so Threads is Twitter's competitor. So basically, well, it's Meta's answer to Twitter. And since Elon Musk has sort of taken over from Twitter, there's been a bit of a drop in advertisers spending money on the platform because there was a lot of negative press at the start. It's interesting because when Jack Dorsey was running it, there were thousands of employees, massive head office, and it was sort of like this massive um, kind of like a censorship center. They were running these they were so busy, tied up in all of the censorship, left and right political
Yeah,
ideals,
moderation, right?
and the moderating the content. There were so many different groups posting and complaining and encouraging you to complain about a particular person. And it's almost sort of birds of a feather flock together, that saying. So you would have all of these groups of activists sort of complaining about Donald Trump, which is half the time was legitimate complaints. But there were, but it's a platform. It's supposed to be, the idea of it was a platform where you could go on and you could say what you wanted to say, right?
Mm.
You could be the person that you wanted to be, and there was no discrimination against. And it obviously, it's like the first version of the Matrix. They said it was a complete failure. The program said it was a complete failure because it
It's
was
too
like
good.
it was just too good to be true. Everyone was nice to each other. It was like Nirvana, so it collapsed. And people have a in tendency in nature to always want to,
Can't
tall.
give
We say
people
in
nice
Australia, it's like
things.
tall poppy syndrome. So yeah, so they're kind of using that concept to shut down people's ideas, the way they express themselves. And so Elon Musk sort of shut all of that down. In a long story short, he kind of just jumped on and said, "Look, there was an interview actually recently where he made a bunch of tweets, and there was an interview. The interviewer was saying, "Well, do you realize these tweets that you put out there are hurting your company basically financially because advertisers are seeing them, they're kind of left or right sort of wing ideals about what you're saying." And he responded. He took a while to respond actually, and it was quite interesting because he referenced the movie, and I'll leave a part of the clip on the blog for the podcast. But he basically quoted a line in the movie. It's like, well, uh, I am going to say what I want to say, whether it costs me money or not. And that's the whole point of the platform. It's not here to be censored. It's not here to be run by big advertising dollars. It's here to be run by the people for the people. And yes, we need money, but he's culled so many people to try and make it lean. And he's now trying to bring a more um, sort of a more centered approach to the topics that are on there. Um, you know, and anyway, so I think Zuckerberg took the perfect opportunity to then launch Threads, because Threads is, basically a similar interface. It's all about the ideas and the topics and things that you're interested in. Facebook gathers so much information about you and who you are, and all of your information that you leave on Facebook, as we just spoke about. So it has all of that data already, and it's Twitter's not connected to Facebook in any way. Obviously, there's things like observer tags, and it does bring information across, and it does try to personalize your advertising to you. But
Two, sorry, just
sorry,
two things.
mm,
He's culled 80% of the people. I
so
do quote. I think I quote one of his interviews where he said, "Turns out if you don't need that much moderation, you don't need that many people."
exactly, 100%. The Dorsey was just running this big censorship house, and people like Joe Rogan, like Alex Jones, for example, in the US, of very far right guys. They were getting basically banned because there were these activists, there were these groups of people that were protesting about the content that he was putting out. Now, you're going to get that anywhere where you've got left or right of center views. You're not trying to appease everybody. You've got
Masses,
to, you
yeah.
know, your audience, and you're talking to that audience because, as I said, it's that saying, birds of a feather flock together. So, you know, now Threads is sort of trying to take what it already knows about you, and it's actually trying to stitch this in threads together to try and give you relevant content. And what I thought we could take an opportunity just to talk a little bit about this Huffington Post article, because it actually touches on all of this, and it touches on the fact that it it's taking basically the data that is linked to you from Facebook, and I'll just go through some of them so people understand how much data is being shared. Okay. Health and fitness information, financial information, your contact information, user content, so anything you post, all your browser history, all that usage data, any diagnostics that algorithms create, and so on, the purchases that you make, your location, all of your contacts, if you've got it connected to your contacts, obviously, and most people do because they want to get more friends on Facebook and whatever
Social,
it is.
yep. Hmm.
All your search information. Now, we know search is brain to keyboard, right? So you basically sit there and you're punching whatever you're thinking about into search. And this is why they get murderers and things. And they know days leading up to, you know, that they just look at your search engine. It tells a lot about you.
How to hide a body.
How to hide a body. Yeah, exactly. All of that kind of stuff.
Pretty terrible, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But still, all your identifiers, all your sensitive information, and any other data. Now, under other data, that there's a bucket of data in there that,
Bang on.
yeah, exactly, right. So all that information is actually stored against the Threads app. So it's gonna take the information from Facebook. It's gonna take all that data and it's gonna bring it across. Now, we know about data leaking out and then other advertisers then using that information. Now it's under a different set of terms and conditions that now Threads can then give to their advertisers to then advertise back. So it's hence why I think what happened in Sweden, oh no, sorry, it was Norway. They actually banned personalized ads from Meta. Now there's a story that just broke last week where there was a decision that Facebook will face $100,000 fine per offense if they try and serve personalized ads in that country. Now we know a lot of these Nordic style countries and in Europe, a lot of this tends to filter down into, you know, Australia, and in Oceania, or also to over to the US. So it's the start of, I think, of a bit of a new beginning with GDPR, but also to the fact that now, um, politically, people are starting to understand that this is important because it has the potential, a political potential here. Because, like the Cambridge Analytica thing we mentioned last week,
Hmm.
that a third party got in and took that information and then used it. It's the same. It's the same thing. You can now basically sway personal opinions about political um, ideals, political people, you know, persons of, you know, interest. Let's just say political interest.
And it's effective.
100%
It
it's
was
effective,
effective. That
uh,
was
and
the
that's the dangerous part about it. So that's why they're banning it, right? They're banning these personalized ads because it's not just about advertisers advertising Coca-Cola and the new flavor. It's
well, that
about,
too.
yeah, 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 that too. But it's also about, you know, these political campaigns and swaying personal opinions about certain topics. So anyway, I think it's an interesting one, and I'll leave a link to that in the show notes, and people can read more about that story. I always recommend for a good app, and I'll quickly talk about a good app. I think it's a good app. It's called Ghostery, and I'll leave that again a link in the show notes. But you install it into your browser, and it basically it stops tracking, and it tells you how many sites are tracking you, why they're tracking you. You can
Hmm.
actually it delves deep into the different buckets of interactions that you're having with the different sites and what they're actually doing with that information. So it's really good, and you can have trusted sites, non-trusted sites. So you can actually accept all cookies on a site, but then what you do is it'll reject the ones that are tracking you personally. So a lot of the times with GDPR, they just have one button that says accept all, but you can actually go in and you can customize, you know, your cookie settings on a particular browser. But a lot of people don't do that. It's just too complicated. So they just go, yeah, accept all, because they say the the site will say the site needs to function correctly for you to enable all cookies, right? And then
Yep.
as a user, you're going, oh, well, yeah, I want the site to function correctly. So bang, you hit it. But then Ghostery will actually strip out all, as I said, all of those really sensitive cookie tracking, um, or the sensitive cookie tracking that's happening. So
Like, have you used Brave?
yes, yeah, the
Yep.
Brave browser.
Brave,
Yeah,
Brave's pretty good. It has a lot of that stuff built in as well, and it's customizable again. So you don't want to break your site to the point where you can't use it, but you also don't want to give up more than you have to.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So, so yeah, I mean that's the privacy and security news. I think for this week there was a few more things. Do you have anything else you wanted to mention
Yeah,
on this privacy and security for this week?
just back on the data. There's I don't know if anyone's knows about it, but there's a website which is samine.com. I think you've heard it.
Yep.
You've seen it in action as well. I've seen it in action. Um, Not sure what the end goal is, right? And we talked about this before, right? So basically, you sign up for the service, they're delving through your history, your data, look in your mailbox, and they will tell you all the companies and entities you've interacted with.
Yep.
And it will actually send out a notice to those companies to remove your personal data on your behalf.
Yep.
And that's as far as I can see. But I don't know what model, and it's free. It's actually free for
Yeah,
most
it is
people,
free.
right?
Privacy Hawk is another one. And
Mhm.
actually, in that Huffington Post article, it is actually more of an advertisement for Privacy Hawk. But I've tried Privacy Hawk, and it's actually
Mhm.
quite good. It does want access to a lot of stuff, like when
Oh,
yeah, but because it needs to read your inbox, needs to do all that. I often wonder what happens to those guys if they get hacked. And I
yeah.
think the best thing, as you said in last week's episode and this week's, convo, it's just about being vigilant.
Mm.
You know,
Don't put
you
out more than you need to
and clear out
run
your
a
browser
business.
history every now and again. It's always a good idea to clear out your cookies. I know it's a pain to have to log back into sites and things again, but as we said in the first episode, try and use your social logins as much as you can. Have your two-factor authentication on your Google account, so you're just using one login.
Try,
And
yeah, yeah. Trusting them to, and they could do a better job protecting it us. But again, putting trust in, again, in another provider. Um, just a caveat: so everyone realizes when you're on the web and you go out and do a DNS query from your browser because you're about to hit a site or a service, there's ISPs and government agencies are all logging that. They're definitely logging it for future use. So even though you do clear cookies, etc., locally, or your history is not really private unless you get down the path of VPNs and Tor networks and all that sort of gear. But
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
save that for another episode, I think.
Yeah, I think we should talk about let's talk about that in the next episode,
Yep.
using something like ExpressVPN, NordVPN, or whatever else other VPNs there are, in
Yeah.
combination with Brave and Ghostery, to really kind of lock down those privacy settings on your
Yeah. I just think the
on your
last thing
on
I'll
your
leave in
machine.
this topic was the difference between privacy and anonymity. So the
Yeah,
different things.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not talking about going onto Silk Road and stuff. We're talking, we're
That
talking
guy's
just
in jail for a
the
long
average.
time.
Yeah, exactly. We're just talking about the average user just locking down their cross-device tracking, their
Yep.
privacy tracking of where they go, what they search for, and things. So Google
Yep.
knows it all anyway, pretty much. So I always, they say don't be evil, so I say okay, well, that's the better the devil you know than the devil you don't know, and I think that's why I much prefer having Chrome, Google privacy settings locked down, and then just using something like Ghostery and a VPN to secure the all the metadata.
I
So
think next episode I'll go through. I'll do a session on
yeah,
actually
good.
all those privacy settings and the platforms. Maybe our listeners might find it useful because Google have invested a lot of time and advertising energy to show that you can actually control a fair bit of information that Google has on you,
Yeah,
Google Maps,
yeah,
but finds you half your shit breaks when you turn it off. So
yeah, exactly. Caveat to that: sites will stop working. All right, nice one. Oh, the rebranding of Twitter to X. I think this is an interesting one because apparently it turns out this week that they announced that they were going to, or Elon announced that he was going to rebrand Twitter just to X. And so today, so today, I've been seeing some funny memes of like X's destroying like birds, like and all feathers, like and just some of the funniest things people.
the
This is why I think Twitter is just it's entertaining. It's actually a really good platform.
the meme
Um,
machine is on point.
yeah, 100%. And so it turns out anyway. It turns out that Meta actually owned the trademark for X in relation to social media platforms and so on. So it's an interesting one because I think Elon doesn't really care too much. Remember, he tried to make his master
PayPal?
plan sexy.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
and Ford had the rights to um, E. So they had a Model
Oh,
E. So
yeah.
that's why the three is then E backwards, right? Obviously. But not many people know that story. When I tell them, even people who own Model 3s, I said, you know why it's called 3, right? And they say, oh, why? And it's like, well, because Ford had the rights to E, Model E.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So
The S,
yes, yeah. So then they,
3.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
sexy. So that was his master plan. Anyway, so now I don't think he gives a shit. So what he's done is just he said, I just want to make it an X because he's obsessed by. I think it's a little absurd. I was going to say, but this X concept, so SpaceX, which everybody loves. I mean, that's Then there's
Is it
um,
true he tried to rename PayPal to X? Is that
X. Yeah,
true?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And is that when he got kicked out of PayPal?
yeah.
Or
That's right. Yeah,
essentially, that's what I read.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, it's so
Smart,
they own
smart.
the rights to it. So it's going to be interesting to see because he's already launched it now. I was watching the site today. It was still the Twitter bird was still up in the corner, and now it's called X, and the favicon is now updated as well. So all of the assets they're slowly populating across. I'm wondering when the iOS app will change. Its icon will change as well. Maybe it already has. Um, yeah. So
Hey,
it's slowly changing. Uh,
I
yeah. But he's getting completely roasted about it. But everybody's loving it. It's that saying. It's like it's an entertaining platform. Now, when I compare it to Threads and get back to the point about Threads, Threads is boring. Threads is boring as batshit. To be honest, I've spent a week on it. The interface is horrible. I don't like the interface at all. The content is just the algorithm. So when you first sign up, I'm like, okay, I'll give it some time. So I thought, okay, I'll jump on. Signed up, did the one click thing, did all that. I thought, wow, that's amazing. 30 over, in 24 hours, over 30 million users have jumped onto the platform. And then I'm like, but the content is really shizen. It's really bad. It is really boring. And I just went straight back to Twitter. And I'm like, okay, because initially, Elon threatens
X,
to
don't you mean?
sue. Sorry, X. Elon threatens to sue, a Meta over losing its users. Basically, they were getting worried because there's 30 million users is
Hmm.
huge in 24 hours. But it was all because of the sign up process. But what they failed to realize is once you're on there, there's nothing to do. That's boring. Like the content, as I said, I don't want to harp on this too much, but like I spent a huge amount of time on there, and my experiences overall weren't great. And I think Meta have a big problem because it's going to continue to be boring because Twitter has an X factor. There- There's my segue. It has an X factor.
Oh, you big threaded that together.
I threaded the X Factor together, and
Oh, Lord.
yeah, so super boring. The platform's boring. I don't. I mean, I can't see advertisers actually wanting to do anything with it. It's got time, and with all that data to start to, its algorithm will start to learn. I think it'll get better, but it missed the mark for me. And to get me to go back and actually try it again, it's a really hard sell. So I'm going to create another podcast about threads. I'm going to go into detail, do a real deep dive into it. So I'll probably post that this week for those who are interested in understanding threads and what threads is, and my experiences with it. So stay tuned for that. All right, so we're pretty much on time now, Inday. Is there What nugget of information have you got for us today?
Uh, Before we go, I'd like to leave you with one little piece of information here that's quite interesting. A technology fact that I've just dug up. So
Like right now, you've just dug it up right
I've
now.
just dug it up right now. It's a little
So it's a
nugget of
real nugget.
information. It's a real nugget. Did you know
No.
that Apple actually had a little foray into an apparel business? They had a clothing business in about
Yeah,
1986.
I
Did
did.
you know that?
Yes, I did. And I had an Apple shirt. Can you believe it? When I was a kid.
Wait, what year were you born?
Hey.
No more questions. But yeah, interesting. Look,
No
I
more question.
mean, I don't remember. I need to do a little bit of research, but I don't know if whether it was a side hustle for
They
the
were like
business or.
penguin shirts. Do you remember the old penguin shirts from that? You could Google those as well, but they were like a penguin shirt, and instead of like the old chinos and a polo type thing, but they had the old Apple logo with the rainbow colors on it.
I'm gonna look it up.
Have a
Penguin
look.
shirt.
And I had one, and my very first computer was in 1988, 89. It was an Apple II GS. It had a color monitor, and the very first interactive game I had that was a game called World Games, and it came free with it, and it cost
Um,
$3,500. I remember this really clearly, and yeah, it was so cool. It was the best thing, and the old cliche goes, the very first program I wrote in ProDOS and in BASIC was Hello World. And I remember useless facts. Hello World was typing across the screen, and Mum comes and she says to me, "Nigel, what are you doing?" And I said to her, because she could hear the old floppy drives. They used to make a clunking sound,
click, click, click.
click 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 click. And and she goes, "What are you doing?" And you've been in here for hours. And I said, "Look what I've done. I've programmed Hello World on the screen, and it was just constantly scrolling." She's like, "That's amazing, Nigel. Now go to bed." It was like 11 o'clock at night. Yeah, that's my first foray into programming.
And on that note, I think we should say
Mm.
good night
All right, yeah.
to our
Thanks very
listeners.
much again, Ende, for joining the podcast.
You're
Our
welcome.
regular guest on the show. Next week, we're going to have a few more guests, I think. Hopefully, we've got a new program set up, which is awesome. And looking forward to having those guests on.
Can't wait.
Yeah, look, thanks very much. All right, let's wrap it up.
See
Enjoy
you
the rest
later.
of your week. Thanks, guys.